Evening, guys, and happy Thanksgiving. Hope you had a good holiday and you ate lots of turkey, stuffed down a lot of cranberry sauce and stuffing, and stuffed your faces with pumpkin and apple pie, and just had a jolly old good time with the fam. That's what Thanksgiving's supposed to be about, in my opinion. And I just got off work. And I can tell you, sometimes after a long, busy day at work, and I get in my car, I don't always immediately want to go home. Sometimes I want to drive somewhere not too far away from my house and park my car and just stay put for a little bit. Kind of clear my head, before I go back and get the rest of what I needed to get done tonight done. Something about it. Sometimes I think the long commute is beneficial. And I think it's beneficial because you have time to decompress. You have time to unwind. And so by the time you get home, work is behind you. Thoughts about work are behind you. You've decompressed. There's that separation between you and your place of work. Like, I remember I had this coworker last year when I was looking for a place to live, and he had recommended that I live in these apartments down the street. He's like, you always want to be within walking distance of your place of work. And I'm like, oh, hell no, dude. First off, logically, does it make sense? Of course it does. But I don't want to live right next to my place of work. I don't want to live right next to the place where I go to almost every single day and it's an earshot of where I live. I want some separation between me and that place. And I know people, they live across the street. Like, I work with people, they live across the street, they live down the street. It's like, dude, I'd want serious separation. And so that's why I live on the other side of town from the place I work. Gives me that separation. You know what I mean? I think that's important. Personally, I think that's how I like it. It's not how I think it's how I like it. It's how I like it. So, in this video, I just want to add onto some of the things that I was saying in my last video. And in my last video, I was talking about the dullness and graying and the uglification of our current world. The gentrification of everything. It seems like everything is so quick to be gentrified these days. Every place is being almost made to look the same. All these buildings being built now, they all look the same. They're soulless. They have no character. They might be new, they might be modern, but they lack a warmth. And they just lack soul, And you see it in these most new houses. Everything's gray and white. Why is everything gray and white? What happened to color? When did things shift? Because when I was a kid, houses still had some color. They still had some character. Most people still had exposed wood kitchens, for example. Warm wood kitchens. Oak cabinets, cherry cabinets. And there was just more warm features to a home. You see this in a lot of 90s homes, 2000s homes, 80s homes, and then the 70s homes. Those are a whole different thing from a whole different era. But they were so unique and they had character, and certainly they can be a little overdone in that way, I guess you could say. And there's obviously features in those homes of that time that if I were to buy a home of that time, I would change. I don't like the green cabinets. I don't like the the green appliances, you know, the carpet is overdone. Like, I don't think every room needs to have a different shade of carpet. But if there's one thing to be said, those homes had character. They had style. You can really tell that the people that lived in those homes and designed those homes, you know, they were really coming from a place of, like, more authenticity. You know what I mean? And so when in the timeline did things shift towards just being gray and white? Why is everything gray and white? Why is it when you come into a new home, it's all gray and white? Gray floors, white cabinets, bright white LED lights. It's like you're in a fucking morgue. You know? And this is why fucking house flippers annoy me. They annoy me, dude. And listen, if you flip homes, this isn't really a jab at you. I have an aunt, and I know that she flips homes. But here's my problem with it. First off, a lot of these people, as I've done some research on, aren't even like professionals. You know, they just took up the idea of flipping houses. And now all of a sudden they're professionals. And all they do is go into these, which honestly most of the time are fine functional houses. And they just go in and they gut it. They take away everything original about the house. They bust out everything that was there before. And they just paint everything white. And it's just like, what's the point? You know? And I get it. Things get old. Things need to be replaced. You know, obviously there's that. But half the time, if not most of the time, when you get these house flippers going into these homes that are like fine and functional homes, they might be dated, you know. They go and they're like, oh, hey, this is a cool house. Wow, look at this. This is a fine functional home. There's not really a whole lot we need to do here. And then they just destroy it. They take away everything. And they just make it like a new home. They make it like a new house. And I don't understand. I don't get it. And so, because I don't get it, I mean, what is the appeal of this to people? You know, what is the appeal of going into these houses and, you know, like completely stripping it of all of its original character to make it look like a new house? Which, to make it look like a new house, all they do is just paint everything white. They make all the flooring gray. The fixtures that they put into place are just like these dull modern fixtures. They like take out all the original light fixtures and they put these LED light fixtures in place. I don't get it. How is that appealing? I don't know, why is that so appealing to so many people? Because I know a lot of millennials like that. They like that look. They like that feel. They like the gray. They like the white. They like that minimalist look. You know, is it because they grew up in homes in the 80s and 90s that had a lot of clutter? I mean, what's it all about? You know what I'm saying? What is it all about? Why is this look so popular? Why is it all of a sudden that things shifted that way? And why is everything that has existed before being taken apart and made to look that way? Because if I had it my way, here's what I think. You should have decades represented in this world. You should have differences in this world. And you should have like a multitude of choices, because a bunch of different people, everybody has a different taste. So it's like when these house flippers come in, they flip these homes that, you know, were honestly fine before. How are they really making it better? You know, if a house is $100,000 on the market, which these days is really hard to find. And if you do find a house for $100,000, it's probably going to need a lot of work. So let's say, you know, the house is $100,000 originally on the market. And it might be a little old and like dated, but nothing's wrong with it. Everything's functional. Everything's fine. There's really nothing that needs to be changed in the moment. And the house flippers come in before anybody buys it to live in it. And they strip it all of its original, you know, features and character and whatever. And they make it like a new modern home. And then they turn it around and they upsell it double the original price, oftentimes even triple the original price. How is that good for anybody? You know, for a home buyer that's out there looking for a house to live in, how is that helping anybody? You know, is it because these colors, they're just the least offensive? You know what I mean? They're so like in the middle that it's what appeals to the largest buying market, you know? Is that what it is? If I had to say, that's probably what it is. But I tell you what, I think it's just making our world an even uglier place. And that's why I care. You might wonder why I care and like why I've made, at this point, by the time I put this video out, it will be a couple of videos about this topic. It's because it's just making everything look the same. It's making everything dull and gray and white. And obviously, I don't have any proof to back this up, but it really seems that that's where they want the world to go. They want everything to be colorless. They want everything to be dull looking. Because I think it has a big effect on the human spirit. You know, color, you know, like differences in the way things look actually enhances people's spirits. So when everything looks the same, I think it just kind of makes everybody conform to the same thing, and it makes everybody think the same thing slowly over time. And I think that's like part of the agenda here. And I don't think these flippers are aware of that. I don't think really a whole lot of people are aware of that. Of course, that makes me sound super arrogant and whatnot. And you know, if you like the gray and white and you like your house to look like that, that's cool. No offense. If you want your house to look like that, cool. You can do whatever you want. But why is everything being made to look that way? You know, like I saw this one flipper channel, I think it was on Instagram or YouTube, and they went into this one 90s house, and it had like, you know, honey oak cabinets, carpet, you know, it looked like it was from the 90s. Nothing had really been updated. It had like a cool brick fireplace. Personally, I saw this home and I'm like, that's a cool home. I would live in that home, you know? But they go in and they just make it bland, dude. They make it uncomfortable, sterile. There's no warmth to it anymore. And it's just like, well, nobody's going to want this house. Bullshit, somebody might want that house. I would rather live in that kind of house than a sterile gray and white modern home. Somebody might see that 90s house and they might think, dude, this is the exact house I was looking for. This is what I want. I want to live in a house like the one I grew up in when I was a kid, or like the one that reminds me of my grandparents' house. It's warm, it's cozy, it's inviting, but biggest of all, it's familiar. You know, and I feel like most homes like that are a little older, but are fully functional, and there's nothing wrong with them, should be left as they are. And the person that buys that house should be allowed to do whatever they want with it. You know, so they buy the house and, you know, maybe they change out the carpet or they paint the walls, or you know, they can do whatever they want. But there's different taste out there for different people. And again, like why I seem to care about this and why I do is because it's eliminating choice. It's eliminating just the color and the past. Dude, being reminded of where we came from is so important. Even if it was just a couple of decades ago. Because somebody might like that. Somebody might prefer that. But I feel like decades are just being lost and they're being erased to fit just this weird modern look that seems to have no soul. That's why I care, dude. You know, that's why I care. Man, I'm struggling with it. I'm struggling with this. And I think the reason why I'm struggling with it is because I just don't like where a lot of things are going. I think it's really important. It's going to be increasingly important in the years to come to have your house, the place that you go back home to after being out in the world, which is already a tough place as it is, to be warm and inviting and be separate from the increasing modernization and gentrification of our world. I really believe that. It's important to have some warmth, some character, some class, and a reminder of where we've come from as people. I'm tired of flippers, dude. I'm tired of flippers. I'm tired of gentrification. I'm tired of all this shit being made to look the same. Every city look the same. You know, I'm done. I'm sick of it, dude. So anyways, just thought I'd put that out there. And I might make another video on this in some way, in some form, but man, I think for now, with what I talked about in the last video, LEDs versus incandescent bulbs, how incandescent bulbs are what you want. LEDs are really bad for your health, and they're everywhere now because they mimic blue light. Blue light is a nervous system disruptor. Red light is what is natural to the human eye. It's what we evolved with. Incandescent bulbs replicate that natural light. LEDs don't. If you ever wondered why you felt so off under an LED bulb, that's why. Anyways, I can't believe this is already at 17 minutes long, almost 18 minutes. Jesus, I just rambled. I don't even know if I got my point across. And I'm fucking tired. So I'm going to go home and I'm going to settle into my night. And you all stay blessed out there, all right? Happy Thanksgiving. And be grateful. Thank you.